Sunday here at the HGC, and that means week 6 is winding down, and we welcome you in to join us here for the last 2 North American matches. My name is Jay Howe. Joining me over here is Dreadnought as we get ready to have our first look back from the clash at Team Freedom, as well as LFM and No Tomorrow trying to work their way up, as well as Simplicity. But we've got a lot of action, especially when we look at Team Freedom today.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see Team Freedom, the highest performing team out of North America at the Western Clash for the first time here, because I feel like, you know, with some of the success some of the other teams had in the past, the best performer is the one that take the largest step back. But I have a, feeling here that somehow Freedom is going to carry the success they had over in the Western Clash back here to North American soil.
Team Freedom, now known as Team Feelings. We're going to see how the standings have played out thus far, because the clash is one thing, but the standings here in the league are another, especially after yesterday where we saw Heroes Hearth fall to Tempo Storm, leaving that window open for Team Freedom to maybe make a run towards that top spot here in North America, Dread.
Yeah, surely Tempo Storm's victory there has got to be the biggest silver lining for Team Freedom, and they haven't even performed yet here for Phase 2, Part 2. It has really opened up that opportunity for them and, again, some of those top competitors to maybe take some more games off Heroes Hearth Esports, earning themselves that first point, if you will, in that L section. But taking a look at the schedule here, Jay Howe, Europe was a pretty action-packed.
Yeah, I mean, Team Liquid, obviously, they had an underperforming showing at the Western Clash. It was their first time back, still showing that in-league play still dominant with leftovers. Well, that was an interesting series nonetheless. When we had Rexar versus Nazeebo one game and the likes of that, Simplicity No Tomorrow will be our nightcap and our final game of week number 6. But Dreadnought, again, Team Freedom versus LFM to start our day.
Yeah, and LFM, we've already gotten some games out of them, and the biggest silver lining has got to be Dark Camaro moving over to the support role. Some huge plays coming out from him already in day number 1, mainly onto the Deckard. So if that keeps up again, I feel like that is absolutely one of the tools that you're going to look at LFM really rely on if they have any shot here to take out, again, what looks like one of the better teams here in North America.
Well, we're going to get to hear from our teams and their thoughts on this series, and our first hearing from Team Freedom. Let's check it out.
So I think as a team, we kind of showed that we can really contend with the best in the West, and we're going to try to really improve upon that for this part. So we're not too worried about LFM. They recently had a roster change, so they might be weaker, might be stronger, but I think their biggest problem lies in macro and really executing late game team fights and shot calling, so I think we'll be able to take it pretty handily. Fury is the key. He's the carry of LFM, and if he doesn't perform, then the team as a whole will not perform well. So he'll be a big focus on this series.
So our match against Team Freedom will be very difficult in my opinion. I've always known that they have been a really strong team. They've obviously shown that at the recent Western Clash. They're the highest placing North American team. They got top 4. We're preparing against Team Freedom just by looking at some drafts that they picked, seeing what their comfort heroes are, and hopefully just not giving them, exactly what they want to, get them off their comforts a little bit, and maybe we can take the series over Team Freedom.
Dreadnought, we heard there from Lutano saying, hey, we don't think LFM is really a macro-style team, and that's one thing that Team Freedom, that was what they relied upon early this year. We've seen some changes, especially to the XP distribution and buildings, which is where we saw Freedom really step up. But as of late, Team Freedom has all of a sudden been like, wait a minute, we can team fight. We are a team fighting team. And it's something that going into the Clash, it was a stat that when we got to the Clash, I looked, I'm like, wait a minute. Team Freedom sits at the top of North America in the overall KD. That's a significant stat for them. It took me off guard, but all of a sudden Team Freedom looks like a team-fighting team with some macro included.
And I think a lot of that comes down to, I think, some of the biggest criticisms that Team Freedom has received since joining the HGC North America, and that is that they are a team that we know can perform. The question is, are they going to show up that day? Are they going to be proactive in their play? I think that's the biggest thing. They are almost Heroes Hearth-esque from what we got with them against Tempo Storm yesterday, in that they were great at punishing you when you made the mistake, but what happens when they had the lead? They never would be the one to force the hand and errors on their opponent's side. But that proactive team fighting seems to have removed that question. That focusing onto the fight here has paid off for Team Freedom, and I think it's going to continue here again today. And part of the reason I'm so optimistic with their return performance here in North America.
Well, let's take a look at the Battleground, because the last time these two teams played, Battleground number 1, well, that was Dragonshire. Conveniently enough, Dreadnought, Guess what battleground number 1 is going to be here?
It's going to be moving over to the Dragonshire.
I think it's going to be moving
We
over
don't
to
have an
Dragonshire.
asset, but I'm
okay.
confident. I cheated. We are going to Dragonshire for game number 1.
We're getting there. But Dragonshire, okay, this is where we saw them in their previous series. It was a 3-0 in favor of Team Freedom. And I want to go ahead and preface this because it was around that time that I started to see things differently, so much so that it stood out to me in part 1 of Phase 2 before the Clash. I'm like, man, this isn't what I'm used to seeing from Team Freedom. So I go to the Clash, and we had a chance to sit down, and I brought this up during the broadcast of the Clash, but I'm going to reiterate it here. I asked Zugrug, I said, what's different about this team? What are you guys doing differently? Because it looks like he's made a more concentrated effort to be more proactive and be the leader as the tank. He said, well, we watched some replays, we downloaded some replays, we started watching Korea, started seeing some things that they did. And so it was a very different approach that we saw from Zugrug. And I'm like, man, I was like, it's very noticeable. Conveniently enough, we go to Eastern Clash a week and a half ago, and I talked to Gen G. We were talking to Gen G, and I'm like, hey, what stood out to you guys at the Clash? Was there any team, is there any hero that stood out to you? They said, yeah, Team Freedom stood out to us. They looked like us. And I'm looking at Gen G like, are you guys crazy? Like, there's no, okay, that's a bold claim. That is very high praise from the best team in the world.
It is very high praise there from that roster, and I can't help but feel like that level of study and research and appreciation towards the level of play that you get out of the Korean region, I hope to come back here. I've talked about it all weekend long on a map like Dragonshire. The pressure towards top, so far, we have seen one team show any amount of interest, and that was Heroes Hearth Esports yesterday against Tempo Storm towards that off-lane pressure. I'm really hoping that we see that here from Freedom, and if we do, I suddenly go, that level of research and amount of appreciation towards international play that they're giving is surely an element that I expect to kind of help them skyrocket towards the top of North America. Here's the bands coming through.
I believe LFM is the team on the right here. So one thing for me that really stood out was fog manipulation. And we know the typical stand around a corner, stand in a bush, especially, is where you go. But I started seeing things differently from Zugrug, and it started on Dragonshire as we get a Dahaka ban, and his Muradin play. Diving areas that I'd never seen them dive before, things of that nature. And we know Fury loves that hero as well. So the contention for that Muradin pick is going to be very telling for me. Deckard, obviously, you know, is strong, but also the incorporation of a Medivh into several play styles for Team Freedom started to stand out to me as well. So curious how much that clash will impact their drafting going forward.
And with the focus and concern that I've already had towards the top lane, the fact that we see Yrel and Dahaka already banned out within the top 2 bans here, feel like we could expect a high priority towards that off lane, but with the Medivh let open here, it makes sense that we do see the transfer there rather than putting the resources towards that top lane. A lot of emphasis towards the bottom half within that standard 1-4 or 3-2 split. I will say, though, I think that's a bit of a concern. You know, if I end up seeing both of those banned out, and I feel like I can, again, get that kind of momentum into my favor in that top lane, not committing to that in the 1-2 here, I feel like it might be a setback for Freedom, but we'll find out.
See if the Blaze comes into play here. That would be kind of the next big target.
Wow.
Instead, it's going to be Raynor Murd, and again, I believe on the right side is LFM, so that would give that control for Fury onto Murd. The Medivh has been the Yoda-style hero, things of that nature, and Phoenix as well with Lutano. So that basically locks in your back line. There's basically all counters from here on out. And very rarely do we say, oh yeah, we're picking our tanks, we're picking our warriors to really counter what you've got coming out. We'll see how effectively they can do that. And Junkrat is one of the counters towards Medivh for those concussion mines that deal with those portals.
Wonder if there's going to be any fear of maybe some Sergeant Hammer sieging capabilities. Out for Freedom, the ban onto the Diablo, understandably so, considering that you know that Muradin is already picked up for, LFM here. Malthael and Garrosh. So Malthael still showing up here in North America. Excited to see how this works towards the top, especially considering the double ban into the melees in that first ban rotation here. Overall, though, a lot of emphasis into the 4-man itself when looking at Team Freedom's composition. A lot of kill potential, too, there with the Medivh Garrosh.
Should be a mage here, maybe something like a Li Ming or a Jaina. Figgy has been known to play that style quite often. Instead, they're going Sergeant Hammer. So the ultimate protect the comp, it was originally used to counter the Garrosh, and people realize Sergeant Hammer kind of works everywhere, and there's going to be collusion on his Kharazim, something he's known for. But the Hammer coming out, we don't always see her on Dragonshire, but it is a map, obviously, where, you know, Hammer kind of works just about everywhere, it seems, but yeah, does do well against something like a Garrosh.
But normally when we look at Sergeant Hammer in our approach to Dragonshire, it's through that heavy lane oppression, demanding respect into one of the 2 more important lanes. More often than not, that's going to be on the bottom half. And it's really going that 1-1-3, keep the pressure up, and maybe rotate out in the downtime, and it's just protecting the hammer. The Medivh, Garrosh, they aren't worried about getting on top of the hammer. They will do that very, very early. So I just wonder, is there too much, I guess, dependency on safety within the laning situation in the compositions that we see drafted by LFM, especially considering that Medivh came out in a 1-2. That was not a kind of wild curveball on the back half of the draft.
If we see Team Freedom maybe turn their focus to the top lane, we know that Karazim does race well. You have the pick potential with any type of Medivh portal at any given moment towards that top lane. You have to get a kill if you do it early, else that trade bottom that a hammer will inevitably get, you lose out on that trade. So any of these early game pressure moves that we might see from that of Team Freedom, it feels like you've got to be successful within those, else you're going to have a setback early game. But this is Team Freedom, a team that has really been stepping up their aggression.
And they've been stepping it up also when you look at the selection of the heroes, mainly with Collusion moving over to the Karazim. Karazim is something we don't see often in North America, but in the Eastern scene, a very, very relevant hero. Normally, you want a gap closer, hard CC warrior with that, you know, as we're getting here into game number 1. We don't have that here in the fact it's the Garrosh, but the Medivh is going to enable him for a lot of dives and kills there. So I'm very concerned here for LFM. We'll see if they have the tools to handle Dragonshire.
Well, for Team Freedom, it will be Collusion on the Karazim, Lutano on Phoenix, Zugrug on Garrosh, Nasmus on Malthael, and Yoda on the Medivh.
And in the red, ladies and gentlemen, it is LFM, where we're going to have Swabs on the Blaze. Raynor is going to be played by Droplets. Dark Chimera repping on that Deckard Cain once more. Murden played by Fury, and last is Figgy on the Sergeant Hammer.
Yeah, the amount of control over the Garrosh is always going to be key, and you look at the knockbacks between Raynor and the Sergeant Hammer, that's always going to be the biggest interest that you have. The problem with maintaining that control is that there are easily portals that can just, you know what, forget the knockback, we're just going to come in right on top of you. So we'll see how that goes. Zugrug has to be careful. He actually stepped into the root there. Nice force will protect him for now. You could see he doesn't have the Indomitable, was trying to dodge that route, ended up getting stuck there. So a few more resources to make sure he gets out alive.
But it's a standard 1-4 approach for now for both the teams. And with the Medivh portal laid out, and as you said, that beautiful force of will, it's just going to give a rotational advantage already here to Team Freedom. We see LFM questioning if they want to get any rotations for them towards that top half, but notice how that's a Raynor. When I talk about the pressure towards that top half, you have one of two situations. You either stack it with the wave as it meets the front wall and get as much siege opportunity as you can. Raynor would be amazing in that situation, or you look for the gank potential. Raynor, not so hot at the gank opportunities in that type of rotation, so I would like to see if, you know, LFM wants to keep making, you know, kind of attention towards that Malthael on the top lane. Raynor's not the one we need to make that half happen unless it's going to be sieging. Somebody like the Murden or of the likes with more kill potential would be able to pay off. It's one of the downsides of having a Hammer Raynor comp. Yeah, just don't really have the gank potential there, J-Hal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Murden would be the leader in that. His individual power doesn't really come on until level 4, as we see the camp started here by LFM, and Team Freedom, they'll recognize an opportunity to just simply push in mid. This is some of that damage that they can get, they obtain. They do give up control of the shrines for now. The mid lane focus, more of a unique approach here for Team Freedom, as that's not normally the priority we see from most teams.
And I think a lot of that comes down to their Medivh, though. It forces their rotations to kind of be very offensive. And again, looking for those kills, trying to find one throughout mid, flip over onto Fury. Should be able to kite away just fine here as he ends up surviving. Control over to the bottom lane is the trade-off here for Freedom. But I do think it comes down to that wave clear, the focus on the mercenaries, and more importantly, again, the Medivh and how he kind of creates this weird laning circumstances. LFM is able to gain the momentum for a moment. Fury actually getting claps onto Zugrug. They're going to land the roof, forcing out the Indomitable. There goes the Stormbolt. There should be enough damage. There's Droplet trying to get the Pepper. Collusion comes in with those Fists of Fury, though, and that is the value there of Karazim. Very good understanding of the decision-making there from Collusion. And man, I love me some solid Karazim play.
I mean, you get that Earth ally in there, definitely helps protect against some more damage coming in, but it's like, look, I'm getting your heal, but I think I'm going to do better if I just punch them in the face.
It's actually one of the only supports that function in that manner. He legitimately goes, okay, I don't worry about what are the damage dealers? I'm going to out-trade on them, and then we're going to be able to essentially trade profit for your team over your opponents. It's really awesome to be able to see that, and again, see that identified by Collusion here in this game.
I'm starting to see, the earlier approach is that now this mid lane control, obviously without this fort being down, any rotation, anybody hanging out in that mid lane trying to go there, the gank opportunities, especially with the Medivh, allows you to just kind of portal in and dive beyond ways that you couldn't before. There's going to be the toss back, the knock up, the body block. Biggie, he's going to be the first casualty of this game. That's first blood.
I expect Team Freedom to use this downtime to either get heavy Dragon Knight pressure or Mercenary pressure. Mercenary is a little bit slower and I feel like safer, but considering their composition and the team fighting that they need, wow, what a juke there from Nasmus on that jet propulsion.
Nasmus needs to be pressing that T key right now.
Absolutely, or B, something, anything to throw out some pizzazz after that one, because boy, you've earned it.
I mean, he set that up. I mean, you don't go in and with that approach if you're not calculating that. That's pretty to see.
Great job there from Freedom, being able to draw those resources to the top half. And as I was saying before, their team composition, Mercenaries seem like a safer choice for them, just purely based on the fact that they don't have the wave clear control and they can maintain the information advantage and rotation advantage whenever they do have that pressure out. They tried for the Dragon Knight, wasn't successful, but after the clever play of Nasmus was able to get the Giants, and there is that pressure window available as one portal. Scaring Figgy a little bit out there. He's just going to hover away.
Well, there was the whole thought process because you just used your E as Sergeant Hammer to make sure to get that unstoppable and get that armor. He thought maybe something was coming, ended up not. And then, of course, you having that invisibility at level 1, so I think he ended up going invisible. You could see they wanted to get in and get the throwback. They get the throw there. There's going to be the knock up there with the Groundbreaker, but Dark Chimera able to provide the heals. But that was the thing. The minute they saw that go down, they're like, guys, this might be a kill opportunity. Unable to get that. But LFM also, with that two-man approach in the top, does get some sieging pressure.
Yeah, this is a really clever answer from LFM to be able to commit the Blaze and the Rainer now towards that top half. Again, you see this now for the more sieging opportunity rather than the kill potential opportunities. That for Droplets and friends, I feel like if they had done this with less of a ganking approach and more of that sieging approach, they would actually be gaining more on this half of the battleground than we would see for Freedom down below. Whereas for now, it's looking pretty close to even here, but I really appreciate the laning approach here from LFM. A 2-1-2 is not something we often see. And when I say that, I mean it's less than 1% of games in North America. So I like the creativity kind of displayed here and exploiting some of the advantages that this composition and draft has.
You mentioned that, and we see that Swabs had the awareness to make sure and back off, see that the gank squad was coming, and now you look at the timing of that rotation. Now we see the priority on that siege camp as Droplets comes over, hits a penetrating round. We also see the root follow. So now we saw the response from Team Freedom top, but now LFM has found themselves an advantage in the bot lane with this camp. We'll see what they can do with it.
Hammer, Deckard, and Murden seem to be showing their interest there, but Rainer is the man who has been given the opportunity to siege through mid. Portal, knockback onto Zugrug, Indomitable going to be forced. No flip out yet as there goes the self-cleanse. He's going to be just fine. Two-man Rue thrown out there by Dark Chimera into the fray, helping Collusion escape this skirmish here. Fury, though, moves up, unafraid here, trying to contest the point. Figgy hovering his way over, forcing the warp out from Lutano. Look at this, for LFM winning the skirmish 4 versus 3 down below, and then find themselves winning up on the top half as well, forcing Freedom to kind of overextend with the rotations towards the middle half. Now they're panic, making the transfer up, and it comes at the cost possibly of Zugrug. Armor is just enough, ladies and gentlemen.
Now Fury, he's got to get them heals as he's trying to get out of there as the fort got the focus. Collusion not able to get back in time, maybe could have given some fists, but this response, Team Freedom, they're dancing. I mean, they are straight dancing, trying to respond to any given side, and again, with the Siege Giants here, they're just sieging up.
And for anybody wondering, when is a 2-1-2 a proper response and like kind of approach to the battleground, the answer is whenever you know that you're kind of able to get a heavy amount of siege and pressure within your two-man, whenever you have a laning mismatch, but you can do that in two different halves of the battleground at once. Every time Freedom over-prioritize top, LFM go siege the bottom half. Every time you see an emphasis towards bottom, that is when you see Rainer go towards top and get the pressure there. This is beautiful play here from LFM. But Team Freedom, they're the team fighting squad. I believe that once we get to the later stages, you know, post first Dragon Knight, that's when they're really going to kind of come online.
Yeah, especially now that we've got heroics. I mean, we saw finally, to relieve pressure, sometimes you just grab a camp, and that's finally the night camp coming up there here to at least give Nasmus some breathing room, but we do see Droplets and Swabs dealing with that. And that entire time, that siege camp did take that bottom lane with almost zero contention outside of that almost gank attempt onto Zugrug.
Team Freedom and friends, now with the counter response here. It's a little late, but it's going to be towards top as LFM has a night camp already down below. So if this siege happens much past this front wall, they're going to be losing more on the bottom half of the battleground than they surely are gaining up here, which is why you see that steady retreat. Fury, though, sharking on the side, might have a Stormbolt there. Going to throw it out to Zugrug. Flip over, Jet Propulsion eats the Indomitable, excuse me. Collusion does get the Radiant Dash out, and now top control here for LFM. Both Shrines controlled by LFM, and Mercenary control for LFM. This should be a Dragonite, J-How.
They have so much lane control. I mean, this warrants such a strong response in the bottom lane. Of course, Medivh trying to hold bottom. He's going to get on point. We'll keep an eye on that on the mini-map, but right now the skirmish is going to be here. Medivh will be forced off because the Deckard and Hammer are down there. It's a matter of, can Zugrug and team, can they isolate somebody? They have 7-sided strike if they can rip it.
They got the salvo out. Threatens droplets falling very low there. No E. Passive Collusion comes in. He has the last punch there. Dragonite was actually picked up there as Collusion unable to get the damage out in time. Good dodge onto the Jet Propulsion, forcing out the bonker here actually from Swabs. Dragonite has been tamed for LFM, but surely not easily there. Team Freedom was not giving that away for free.
I think that was almost a gimme. It seemed like one auto attack should have gone the other way. But for now, we do have the DK. Does finish off this mid lane. Raynor on his way back. Remember, no bunker. 7-sided strike could work if they find an isolated DK, but it's not always a guaranteed use for it. Short enough cooldown that it's more forgiving than not.
It's actually one of the more upsetting things. I wish when I played the Karzim more often than not, I couldn't hit the Dragonite, because so often people clump on top of it, and you're like, I don't want to hit the Dragonite, I just want to kill the guys directly behind it. It's one of the better tactics to be kind of defensive against a Karzim, is always stay stacked. Nazmus taking a lot of damage here for free, forcing out that inevitable end, able to dodge the oil slow. Jet Propulsion not up for a few more. One more Q from Swabs might be enough to get the kill, as the kick is there from the Dragonite. Got Chimera in a 1v1 that he cannot win.
Sergeant Hammer ended up dying, but Raynor's Raider almost confirmed the kill. We're going to see the rotation over, see if Yoda does have a portal if needed. Instead, he's got some help from Zugrug as they get the toss over. But Team Freedom, despite having the 3 kills in this game, it felt like LFM has had control in every other department.
They very much have. Outside of, I feel like, a little bit of clunkiness there, and I put that more on the outplay level, I feel like, for Team Freedom over that middle Dragonite. Other than that, LFM has been able to maintain control. If they can clean that up, this might be a very different game, because Dragonshire is one of those battlegrounds that you always return to the laning situation. You have to, based on how the objective works. And because of that, if you're winning the laning situation, if the first Dragonite, you know, it's bumpy there, you look at it and you go, it doesn't really matter. We're fine as long as we maintain that control. And J-How, once that top 4 falls, bottom 4 falls, and mid has been very easily well prepped, something that Sergeant Hammer can make easy work of here. Vision, information advantage, and things of the like for Freedom are drastically diminished to a point where I can't help but feel like they're going to have to make some very predictable portal plays.
Well, here's one right now as they sniff out the night camp. They do find themselves on even talent tiers. The entire team is nearby. Sergeant Hammer was showing bottom. Should be able to get the portal in. There goes the instant stun onto that. Indomitable's going to be there. 7-sided strike, but bunker comes down. Here comes the salvo.
Salvo coming out. A lot of damage, but another bunker attempt there from Swabs will keep him alive. Nazmus trying to survive. Stay a while and listen is going to be locked down, but it doesn't keep anybody locked down in it. Fury trying to get outside of that scroll of sealing. Dwarf Toss flipping him out. Collusion goes in, Collusion goes out. Portal is there, and all of Team Freedom take the portal escape quickly out of there. Long back and forth there for the teams, but Freedom, the one who walks away with a kill.
I don't know how much spell damage was in there, but the capture of the night camp in those moments, remember, you get the spell armor. The minute that you capture that and you're in that bubble, there had to be something, because Zugrug, with all that armor from his trait, potentially some spell armor, had to be living with less than 100 health there. I didn't even see his health bar at the end of that.
It was ridiculous. Groundbreaker now here from Zugrug. Indomitable to eat the Stormbolt. Fury without a door toss going to eat 7-sided. Dark Chimera comes in to take a couple of strikes himself, but maybe a little bit too much there. Groundbreaker does end up hitting, but the scroll of ceiling does give him enough distance here to retreat. 16 just around the corner here for Team Freedom. They will be able to pick that up before LFM, but not enough to depend on that advantage, especially if Nazmus is going to get caught out. There's the inevitable end use. Teleport out, portal out. Man, talk about a way to get halfway across the battleground in under a second to take out.
Just juke by yourself and some help from some friends at the end of it. But right now, both Shrines capture that 16-tier advantage in favor of Team Freedom momentarily. They will have to deal with trying to either get a fight, but they've got to hold mid for now unless they can get a rotation to one of these Shrines. But looks like they're bullying their way down the mid lane.
Hammer actually getting zoned out along with Deckard moving towards the bottom half, putting a lot of emphasis towards that offlane pressure. LFM, man, they are putting on a clinic right here of just not committing to the obvious fight of their opponent, constantly forcing the rotation in one direction and then getting an advantage elsewhere, demanding answers throughout that middle Dragonite. Though not making a rotation to one of the two shrines has cost them a lot of pressure here, forcing Figgy to get a little bit aggressive on that bottom half. Dark Chimera and friends are able to move up in time, but I can't help but feel like that rotation needed to be a couple seconds earlier. Jet Propulsion along with the Stormbolt. We see the Cleansing Dash, Cleansing Touch coming in there by Collusion.
Ooh, the taunt as the bunker went down, 7-sided strike, hopping into the bunker again, but Swabs, he's gonna be low. He should be the first to fall. Actually, Yoda was the first to fall. It's a 2-for-1 as Collusion down. Zugrug trying to get out of there, just hops in the portal, but that could have gone so much different. Team Freedom ended up getting collapsed on.
But the biggest problem, J-How, is the fact that the advantage of that team fight went over to LFM, and they already sent Fury towards that top lane, door toss over the wall, and they are going to try and pick up the Dragonite. Oh, Jimmy is on an island. He's getting collapsed on here by Team Freedom. This is a beautiful rotation here. Droplets out on an island. They're no way out of here. Oh my, Freedom knowing that he was getting too confident on that bottom lane, and now they have found themselves essentially 25 seconds of an advantage that they never thought they would have. Yes, the Dragonite is here for LFM, but what are they going to do with it?
I mean, you think about the fact that Hammer is in this, so the potential sieging behind a DK or with a DK, that's gone. Raynor was the one that died, so that damage, you're looking at Murd and Blaze and Deckard with the DK. It's just not going to be enough to really do anything. And Nasmus just going in. Last Right's actually going to confirm the kill. Nasmus is like, let's go. I mean, we saw the inevitable end used to dodge that DK kick, and then he just squatted on top of him.
Yeah, great job there from Team Freedom. And again, staggering these deaths over LFM. LFM has got to find a way to show that restraint they had within the 2-1-2 laning and display it here in the back end of this game, because now that Freedom is gaining some momentum with this death ball composition, I wonder if they're ever going to be able to let go of it. The biggest silver lining here for LFM is the fact that Team Freedom is just now claiming the first fort of the game for themselves, and it's on middle. Middle is now at these later stages actually a more important kind of objective than people typically give credit for, because of the vision control. And with the deep composition, the vision control is probably one of the most important things to make sure you can make portal plays. So normally I'd be like, I'd like to see bottom fort, maybe top fort at this time to get that kind of pressure. But I feel like with this composition for Freedom, the fact that they got middle fort could pay off. As long now it puts more emphasis for LFM to make sure they always have mid lane pushing into their favor.
It's a very long-term strategy, it feels like. I mean, we're almost 16 minutes in. It was 15 minutes. And that mid lane was their priority target right out of the gate. They finally get some control in that regard. Outside of that last team fight, LFM has not been able to get a kill. We saw the initiation there. It was before the rest of the team was able to rotate up. So for LFM, they haven't exactly, I mean, it's weird because they've won outside of macro, which is the one thing that Team Freedom said that they had none of. They're going to need to team fight at some point, get a pick, get a gank, but with this composition of Hammer and Raynor, it's not exactly like you're just running down looking for kills.
And for me, I think that comes down to like the word macro, right? Like we use it very often. We talk about it a lot, but it's all encapsulating kind of word. It's a very big, broad spectrum of all the things that macro does end up covering. And I think it's fair to look at LFM and say they struggle in the macro sense when looking at their late game rotations, mercenary priority, things like that. But their laning sense of the macro in this game is outstanding. Again, with that 2-1-2 split pressure here, it's been too difficult for Freedom to figure out so far, but I do wonder if they're going to master the macro of the mercenaries here at the later stages of this game. So far, it's showing that they have here. Night Camp and Giants still sieging up here. 20 is not achieved for either team. Will Team Freedom force the hand and 20 fight? The portal is going to be there, but the knockback immediately, everybody forcing the damage onto Zugrug. He has to retreat. And LFM pick up bottom keep there with an epic siege.
The double camp, we've seen it so many times from Tempo Storm. It's nice that we've got a double camp up here, but I can tell you that it will not net nearly as much as what we just saw, especially in that priority bot lane that we do have. So for LFM, they're making plays happen. It's just every time they've had the DK, somebody's been dead, a couple of people have been dead.
But I feel like they've put themselves in a perfect kind of interesting question situation right now, right? They have the top lane pushing heavily against them. They do not have vision control over mid. They do not have vision control over bottom half of the battleground. So do they make the desperation act to make this rotation up like you see Droplets questioning right now, even though there's a Medivh hovering above with portals at all opportunity, or they make the panic rotation towards mid? It looks like the full answer towards mid, but last time we saw this from LFM, they did not end up gaining more out of this. And considering they have the dominant laning situation and a keep advantage, this is showing, again, that I think weak macro that you heard Freedom kind of trying pointing out earlier.
Well, we'll see exactly how much those catapults do accomplish in that bottom lane, because that does put you on a timer when it comes to the control. Once that shows, that should allow the LFM the freedom to potentially go up top, or at least send one person top. So they're going to hold their ground. Medivh, of course, scouting out this entire time just to keep an eye on it all.
Which direction does LFM break? To the 4-man of bottom, or everybody towards top? Malthael has no retreat, but he has actually, he doesn't have faster mobility there. I was going to say level 1 talent would be able to help him retreat, but not going in that direction. On a pale horse not picked up. So they could get that collapse if they want to. Phoenix shows himself down on bottom.
They're just going to push down. They finally send Blaze to the top. I mean, obviously Medivh was scouting. And you can see that the minute that shows and Blaze goes top, that we'll see Team Freedom move to the middle, move to try and find some type of advantage. And the minute somebody shows, I feel the rotation was just very slow, very late. And Team Freedom was just waiting for them to make that mistake.
And they know Blaze is still up top because he just picked up that top shrine. Things kind of falling apart here at the later stages of this game for LFM. Now bottom 4 now getting converted back for Freedom. Another major victory for them, as vision and control of these lanes has been the biggest detriment as to why they are down that keep in this game. Now the rotation is here from LFM. They're going to have a better time-sensitive rotation over LFM or over Team Freedom. The bottom giants are available for Team Freedom, which is absolutely the next go-to position if you are LFM. Try and buy as much distraction in the long run so you can make a back rotation towards that top control and then pick up a Dragonite later. The important thing is here, once they pick this up, they need a swift transition through clearing on mid or backdooring on the top half. But posting up and sieging on bottom is not an answer in this type of situation, and I can't help but feel like they might think that it is.
Yeah, I mean, they have the upgrade for Sergeant Hammer.
I feel like getting desperate.
Here comes Phoenix. Phoenix flank. They're actually going to backdoor the shrine. Everybody's showing. Medivh has this scouted out, and now LFM, they are on the retreat. Lutano's got to be careful. We have the big stun follow-up. There's going to be the force of will. Can he get through? There's going to be the cleansing dash, allowing Lutano to get through, but stay a while on this, and that was interrupted.
Yeah, I'd say a while. Listen, was interrupted. A second Stormbolt lands onto Lutano, now gaining some of the shields. He still has his 20 available. Portal is dropped there. Last Life is going to be used. Fury trying to kite away, but he'd be unable to do so. But Yoda actually goes down. Stay a while and listen, locking down one, but Radiant Dash comes through for that cleanse, swaps, gets back into the bunker, and LFM up a member, forcing Team Freedom back constantly here. And Lutano barely able to warp over that wall. And look at that, Malthael burning that level 20 talent here to be able to come back into the battleground. Swaps. Greedy rotation up, punches being thrown by Collusion. They need the damage to get the kill. Collusion actually gets killed.
I mean, he makes that kill, and you are 100% back in the game. You force that death, and all of a sudden, with Collusion falling, this opens the door for LFM to get a DK to survive here. We already see Lutano. He's going to be stunned. We're going to see Dark Chimera. He's going to follow up, but not before the warp out by Lutano. Malthael just trying to sneak down at the bottom. Can he get here in time? He does not.
Dragonite obtained here for LFM. Still 30 seconds till everybody on Team Freedom is alive. Malthael was given the mercy, if you will, in that bottom lane to make his back. He will be able to try and stop the Dragonite. But 21 minutes into the game here, J-How, and down Collusion for another 20. I don't know if they can. There is a big problem, though. Fury back. And nobody is worried about Fury's positioning. If Freedom all ends this, it's a 4 versus 4. This is an even fight.
Well, if they have enough time, they're only 10 seconds out before we get Kerosene. A 7-sided strike would come here, and all of a sudden, Deckard, actually the first one down. Droplets, he's trying to survive, does get the penetrating around heal. The DK, though, has the core down to 50% and falling. They've got to try and get through here, and it looks like the DK plus Sergeant Hammer should be enough. 7-sided strike is going to be there. Fury comes in, and the upset here in game number 1 is Fury and team get the victory over Team Freedom.
That was beautiful laning setup from beginning to end there in that game from LFM. I did not think that at the later stages, if you notice, starting with the second Dragonite attempt over that collapse on mid, I was like, oh, this is Heroes Hearth Esports all over again. A team afraid to figure out how to be able to pull the trigger and get themselves a win. But catching out Lutano with that very aggressive rotation on the bottom half, a little bit out too far, and they kept their cool at the end here. Very clean play. I cannot praise their 2-1-2 laning situation enough, because the amount of education and kind of thought process that goes into that, and again, the rarity of that decision making, that's constantly what I'm asking teams to be able to do. And now LFM's doing that against Team Freedom and getting a win? What?
How about when Swabs found his way in that mid-bush towards the top? I mean, Swabs dies there. We have a different game. Collusion dies. You could see the impact. He came in, used that 7-sided strength, but by the time he got there, was a tad too late. But credit to LFM. They made that push. They made it happen, and it got chaotic towards the end. They didn't take a lot in the way of team fights, but they got it when it mattered, and that was the big thing. So LFM, I don't think anybody expected them to come out here and get game number 1. Team Freedom, again, our number 1 performing team at the Western Clash for North America. Now, Sergeant Hammer, do we see a Sergeant Hammer get let through the next draft? Because I doubt it.
And I want to bring it back a little bit more, even towards the Dragonshire play, because this is a big concern that I had. I was always talking about the top lane, who's going to be focusing it. Notice again, LFM, though it's a different approach. It's not the exact same, cycling pressure. It's still the same concept in the long run. Too much emphasis on bottom. You get the siege on top. Once they take out that top 4, it was still very crippling for Team Freedom to be able to handle in that game, especially because of the composition that they ended up picking up. But that was... I seriously can't praise the decision-making there from LFM enough because of that Medivh pick up on them in the battleground. Oof. If we get that for the rest of the series, I go Team Freedom. You can't just approach this as a standard team fight team because LFM's just going to dance around you all day.
It did feel weird because at one point it was 7 kills to 2, and that was in favor of Team Freedom. I'm like, man, when you have that type of disparity, you have that type of control, just getting those picks, and then you look, and then you look at the mini map, and it's like forts are standing, no forts standing. I'm like, something's not right here, and we'll see if they can remedy that game number 2. We know Team Freedom to be a strong team, and in their previous series they ended up going 3-0 against that. But this time, it's already looking better for LFM. I believe we've got some tweets available that are going to come out there from you guys out in the Twitter land using that hashtag HGC. I think it says a lot about the state of Morales that both Raynor and Hammer are in the meta, but she isn't. Chaos OS puts out some great numbers out there for you guys ever wonder where those numbers come from that show up. What's he trying to say about Morales, man?
That she is essentially like a weaker white main, no diving, no self, kind of survivability. She just turns around, takes the fight.
She's got grenades.
I mean, she does have grenades. I don't know. Sergeant Hammer, without the stim drone opportunity, it does seem like she might show up a little bit here. But as we see, they're shouting out to all the members there. And then we got win the series today. Y'all gotta make it to BlizzCon, baby. It'd be awesome to be able to see LFM make their way up towards the BlizzCon ranks. But I hate to break it to you, ladies and gentlemen. There are some series through. It is a very difficult task. I don't know if it's statistically impossible for them to do so, but it is definitely improbable. It's a long trek there, but they can. Again, we got the playoff system opportunity if they can get away from the Crucible range.
I mean, Fury, he makes no mistake about it, makes no bones. He tweeted out earlier this phase, he's like, look, we're making the push towards BlizzCon. They wants to get that. He's been to so many LAN events. He's been at the top. He's been around the scene so long that everything else it doesn't feel normal not to have Fury at these situations. Obviously, circumstances after last year and things of that nature and the teams that he's been on, he finds himself regrouping, trying to get back to the top. So we'll see if that comes in. So LFM, if they're going to make a run, it's got to start sometime. You just got to get out of Crucible range, and the playoffs is all that matters. You just got to win a few best of 5s, and that's it.
Yeah, I feel like the one thing that I'm always so surprised with in that first game and why I'm sitting here so giddy, I think, towards LFM is because when we expect them to get major upsets, in my brain it's like, Fury, he gets a big play, they set up the team, things like that. But again, this is them winning with something that I often ask out of North American teams that it feels like we very rarely get, because it takes a lot of a forethought to a game before you even start playing it on how you're going to get that approach. And we get it from LFM against, again, Team Freedom, and the execution that they had. It wasn't this kind of just throw your bodies at them and get the outplay. It makes me very optimistic towards LFM and their future here at HGC.
Well, let's see what type of strategies they can come up with.